There is an official Death Note musical and it kicks ass. Yes, I know that entire sentence sounds completely absurd, and trust me, I had my doubts too considering how atrocious the Netflix movie was, but I went and saw it live and I can confirm that it is great. Like, it seriously has no right to be as good as it is. But honestly, why is that such a surprise? I mean, if you really stop to think about it, Death Note is kind of the perfect series to get a musical adaptation, considering that it's just a bunch of over-the-top inner monologues that pause time. So it's not that much of a stretch to just take those thoughts and put them to song.
I wonder, is this guy for real? I wonder, is he who he claims to be? And if he isn't, what's the deal? Why would he make a point of telling me?
He doesn't rattle easily. He's such a calm and cool, collected guy. And if he kills while he's with me, like it or not, I am his alibi.
The entire Japanese production is right here on YouTube along with the official English version of all the songs. So if you want to leave and go experience it for yourself right now, go for it. I'm not going to waste your time if that's all you wanted to know. Besides, I think you watched enough of the video for YouTube to consider it to be a view. However, if you want to stick around, I'll be discussing what makes the musical so special along with some of the history behind its creation. But considering that the only English production of the musical was all the way in London and it cost me an arm and a leg to fly across the pond to go see it, I want to give a quick thank you to the very appropriately named Opera desktop browser for making it possible. If it's not obvious from my content, I can be a bit scatterbrained and my mind wanders constantly, which is why I love Opera's Tab Island feature, since I can better organize what research project or curiosity I need to focus on at a time. And speaking of research, Opera's built-in AI assistant Aria can really help speed up the writing process. See how it highlights important details? Well, I can click on those to automatically be brought to a search result. It generates a solid lead, and then I can do the legwork of actually doing the research. It's also handy to have Aria act like a thesaurus without having to navigate to another website. In addition, I have a lot of respect for Opera's built-in privacy features like its tracker blocker and built-in VPN. No extensions needed, it's completely free, and it doesn't have a data cap. And hey, that's just how I use it. Opera Browser is easily customizable and allows you to shape your internet browsing experience to the way you want it to be. So go ahead and give it a shot completely free by clicking the link below. But once again, big thank you to Opera for helping me get to London to actually watch this musical in the first place. So now, let's talk about it. Death Note the musical was announced in 2013 and was composed by Frank Wildhorn, who is most well known for his musical Jekyll and Hyde and for writing Whitney Houston's Where Do Broken Hearts Go. This dude has a lot of experience in Japanese theater, having composed multiple Japanese musicals and has adapted many of his English ones into Japanese as well. He's even married to an actress that played the lead in a couple of them. Funnily enough though, Wildhorn had never heard of Death Note before being approached for the job, but thankfully his son was a huge fan, gave his father a crash course, and insisted that he say yes. The show was directed by Tamiya Kuriyama, a prolific director that's received the prestigious Medal with Purple Ribbon for his contribution to Japanese art. He also has experience directing Korean musicals, which certainly comes in handy considering that when it was first announced, Death Note the musical was set to have productions in both Japan and South Korea. While things chugged away on those, a full English version was being workshopped in New York, resulting in an entire concept album being recorded with Jeremy Jordan as Light Yagami. And yeah, I get that he's a Broadway actor, but he's also the nerdy guy from the Supergirl show, and I find that delightful. Plus, the dude has some serious chops.
Till lawyers cutting deals becomes a crime. Let the corporations make the regulations and hold no one accountable when everything goes wrong. Let the rich and famous get away with murder. Every time a high-priced mouthpiece starts to talk, his client gets to walk. Tell me, where is the justice? If there's any justice.
It's honestly really surprising that it took so long for an English production to materialize, considering that the Japanese and Korean shows were so successful that they came back twice, and in addition to that, every single Korean production has won awards. This reception made folks all around the world hungry to experience Death Note the musical for themselves, resulting in a Russian concert performance in 2021 and a Brazilian college show in 2022. But finally, in August 2023, nearly a decade after the creation of the concept album, an English production finally happened in London. Now, taking an entire 37-episode anime and cramming it into a 2.5-hour show is impossible without concessions, but in my opinion, it is handled really well. It only covers the first 26 episodes, cuts some characters, and speeds up the plot, which isn't unprecedented considering that the director's cut movies do the exact same things to the anime. And for some people, this might be a more enjoyable experience than the manga or the anime because there's less conversation and more back-to-back exploration of what the Death Note is capable of. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the little conversations in the series, especially the ones where Light has to mask his true self and intentions. But I also have a couple of friends that couldn't get into the series, and I'm excited to see what they think of this more streamlined experience. It's really impressive though that the musical is able to incorporate most of the major story beats and iconography of Death Note without making the plot feel too rushed. They were even able to subtly reference that iconic potato chip scene during one of the songs and have a full-on tennis match, though the whole handcuff plot was ignored, which is totally fine in my opinion. But man, the songs are so damn good.
Some little thing, some minor detail will draw you in, and then another one will draw you out again.
Frank Wildhorn's composition is brilliant and uses its instrumentation, motifs, and structure to enhance the storytelling while also referencing and building upon the anime's soundtrack. If you love music theory, then I highly recommend watching Izzy Trash's breakdown to really get into the nitty-gritty of what makes each song so great. But while we're here, I have to give massive props to Jack Murphy who wrote the lyrics. There are so many great lines and rhymes, such as,
I know by now you understand you're but a pawn upon a board. I've won the game but never gave up half my years.
and
Only human after all. So they push and they shove
with this thing they call love
till they fall.
and
Father, you know that I feel as you do for these lessons I learned at your knee. And I think maybe by working with you, helping you will be helpful for me.
But of course, every language has different lyrics to accommodate the different sentence structure and number of syllables. So if you really want to enjoy this play to its fullest potential, it's worth checking out each production. For example, the song Where Is the Justice works better in English for me because it's more of a traditional I want song that firmly establishes who Light is.
Show me what's right about the wrongs that we allow. Real people need to feel protected here and now. This whole damn system's broken way beyond repair. It's just law, not law and order, not much good and seldom fair.
Whereas in Japanese, it still functions like that, but to a lesser degree, and with sections that try to define what justice is in the first place. Meanwhile, the song Hurricane lands way better in Japanese for me because even though it's a fine metaphor for how Light's use of the Death Note makes him a sweeping force of death much like a hurricane, him straight up singing about the little nickname that he gave himself over and over again comes off as a little bit cheesy.
I'll bring the rain, I'll bring the wind. I am the mighty hurricane.
As for more substantial changes to the source material, Misa Amane goes from being a model to a pop idol who leaves messages to Kira through her music, which I think works really well in this adaptation because it allows for some of her numbers to be diegetic and also gives a break in tone by allowing places for love songs and upbeat pop numbers. However, Misa and Light's dynamic ends up being underdeveloped because the show is practically over as soon as they meet. Most of Misa's scenes are solos where she sings about how much she loves Kira, so we don't actually get to see how much Light manipulates her. Considering that Misa is a pretty divisive character in the fandom, this could be seen as yet another point in the musical's favor, but she also gets plenty of stage time with her multiple numbers. Ryuk, on the other hand, goddamn, I had no idea how he was going to be portrayed on stage, but the costuming for him and Rem goes so hard, and you would think that his voice wouldn't really translate well to music, but just listen to how Eric Anderson makes him sound on the concept album by channeling his inner Willem Dafoe.
Where I come from is a world of bone and dust. No need to change or readjust. Where the plight of human beings is ignored, and all I am is always bored.
Hands down though, L is the best part of the show, which surprised me considering that I'm not the biggest L fanatic on the planet. See, I don't really mind overly quirky characters, but in my opinion, some of them can fall into that LOL so silly random Tumblr humor. But while the musical retains plenty of his quirks and odd behaviors, his mind and deductive reasoning are literally given center stage, and he steals the show whenever he's around.
The game begins the same way. The chase is on the dice cast. I sift 1,000 pixels
There is a lot of emphasis on how he and Light are two sides of the same coin, and how L doesn't really care about all the murders that are being committed. He just sees this as one big game that he finally has a worthy opponent to face, which is explicitly spelled out in one of their duets.
I don't care who gets hurt now, as long as I get one more shot.
The absolute best showcase of their dynamic is the song Stalemate, which delivers on one of those classic L and Light inner monologues, but turns it into a musical game of chess.
His name is obviously fake, so he inoculates himself from me. He's waiting for my first mistake, so I'll wait also, but more patiently.
Just like two actors on a stage, go through the motions that we both rehearsed. Our little new atomic age. Eyeball to eyeball, we'll see who blinks first.
I also want to give huge props to Teppei Koike's portrayal of L in the Japanese productions, because he perfectly captures the character's entire vibe, which is in stark contrast to Kim Jin-soo in Korea, who does a fine job, but his K-pop aesthetic doesn't really work for me as L, although I'm sure the fangirls love it. I was also really surprised by just how much I liked Chief Yagami in the musical. All of the other officers got the axe, which basically makes him the sole voice of the police, but because the musical strips down the series to its bare essentials, his role expands a little bit, and we get some great songs about how much he doesn't trust L, his methods, and how much he doesn't want to believe that his son is Kira.
You don't kill someone as a substitute. You don't load a gun, close your eyes and shoot. You don't kill a man just to buy a clue. This is not a plan lawmen can pursue.
But now we have to talk about the revised ending, so spoiler warning I guess, but there's no way in hell that you've watched this much of the video without knowing the biggest moment in Death Note, the death of L. So when Misa gets arrested for suspicion of being the second Kira, Rim frees her by wiping Misa's memories of the Death Note and writing L's name, which in turn kills her because she used the book to extend the life of a human. Ren's whole arc revolves around her relationship to love. See, when the Shinigami Jealous sacrificed himself to save Misa out of love, Rem became curious about the emotion, and over the course of the show, Rem develops love for Misa and ultimately sacrifices herself in the name of saving her. This ironically makes her more human, which contrasts to Light and L and their little god complexes. And that is one thing that I really liked about this musical, because in the original series, it's a bit vague as to why Rem is so devoted to Misa, but here, it's pretty much spelled out that it's because she's in love with her. And I think that by giving Rem's motivation a bit more definition, it fleshes out her character and gives her depth in a much needed way. But anyway, L's death was meticulously planned out by Light, puppeteering him to an abandoned warehouse and having him shoot at Light before turning the gun on himself. The plan was for Light to return to the police and claim that L revealed himself as Kira and tried to murder him, and so now he had this gunshot wound to help sell his alibi. However, with L's death permanently putting an end to the game of cat and mouse between him and Light, Ryuk grows bored once again and writes Light's name in his own book, remarking that the entire ordeal was meaningless. Considering that Light is super dead, that whole arc with Nier and Mello doesn't happen here, which that's totally fine. I think that whole section of the series gets way too much hate, but pretty much everyone can agree that it does not hold a candle to the dynamic of Light and L. But it's not like this ending was a slap in the face of the original creators, considering that Ivan Menchel, who wrote the musical story, cleared it with them first, and I personally think that it's poetic to have the story end in a stalemate. The production in London was such a success that it ended up getting a short encore run, and the show that I caught was on the very last day of it. And let me tell you, it was a sold-out show. The set was smaller and had less effects than the Japanese production, but the acting was solid enough that the show was just as captivating. But also, it might surprise you to know that there are many more Japanese plays that are based on anime and video games, and plenty of them are available here on YouTube, like the Ace Attorney plays. So if you're hungry for more, then there is plenty to dig into, and I really hope that this video gets enough views to help more people give the Japanese theater scene a shot. But also, if you want to support my channel and give it more of a shot, then feel free to check out my video on the Death Note sequel, please. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time.